She cooked for him every morning for 40 years. The last morning she cooked for him again, and he never woke up. That afternoon the house went completely silent, and for the first time in 4 decades no one needed anything from her. She didn't know who she was anymore. We open on the factual daily reality of a 72-year-old woman, Margaret, who spent 40 years as a wife, homemaker, and primary caregiver. Not dramatic, just ordinary. Her identity for 4 decades was built around her husband, Robert, who died of a sudden cardiac event at age 75 in their home on a Tuesday morning in March. This act explores one of the most under-discussed psychological realities of long marriages, enmeshment of identity. After 40 years, Margaret did not simply lose a companion. She lost the framework through which she understood herself. She was a wife, a nurturer, a scheduler, a second half. Without that, who was she?
Sign number 5, low mood, anxiety, or depression. There's a meaningful connection between vitamin D and mental health, and it goes beyond just feeling down in winter. Vitamin D receptors are found throughout the brain, including in regions that regulate mood, motivation, and emotional resilience. Low vitamin D has been associated in multiple studies with increased rates of depression, heightened anxiety, and a general sense of emotional flatness. It doesn't cause depression on its own, but a deficiency may worsen an existing vulnerability. Who's at risk? People who spend little time outdoors, those in high-stress jobs, and individuals already managing mood disorders. Sign number 6, hair thinning or increased hair shedding. If you've noticed more hair in your brush, on your pillow, or in the shower drain, and you've ruled out other causes, vitamin D may be worth investigating. Vitamin D plays a role in stimulating hair follicle cycling. When levels are low, hair follicles may enter a prolonged resting phase, causing more hair to fall out than usual and less new growth to replace it. Who's at risk? Women in their 30s and 40s, people under significant stress, and those with thyroid conditions. Sign number 7, slow wound healing. Small cuts, scrapes, or surgical incisions that take longer than expected to heal can be a sign that something is off with your inflammatory response, and vitamin D is deeply involved in that process. Vitamin D helps regulate both inflammation and the growth of new skin cells needed to close a wound. A deficiency can slow both phases of the healing process, leaving the body vulnerable to infection and prolonged recovery. Who's at risk? People with diabetes, older adults, and those with circulatory issues. Stay with us for the solution.
The world around Margaret responds in the way the world always responds, with food, flowers, and a 2-week window of compassion. After that, the phone calls thin out. The children return to their own lives. The neighbors assume she's adjusting. Nobody asks the harder question, not "Are you okay?" but "Who are you now?" This act gives voice to the social structure that surrounds aging widows, and how it is often built around comfort rather than transformation. Well-intentioned, but insufficient. A University of Michigan study found that social isolation among adults 50+ increased by 33% in the year following spousal bereavement, even among those who had strong pre-loss social networks. Only 25% of bereaved spouses over 65 were connected to any formal grief support, counseling, or community program within the first year of loss. Adults over 65 are the least likely age group to seek mental health support, despite having among the highest rates of bereavement. We hear Margaret recount a specific moment, sitting at the Sunday dinner table at her daughter's house, surrounded by grandchildren and conversation, and feeling completely invisible, present in body, absent in self. That invisibility is the turning point, not dramatic, not a breakdown, but a quiet, private decision. This cannot be the rest of my life. Sympathy cards on a mantelpiece, dozens of them, slowly gathering dust. A phone that rings less and less. This is the act most documentary storytellers skip, and the one that makes this story unforgettable. Because Margaret did not have a perfect marriage. She had a real one. 40 years of real. There was love, there was also sacrifice. There were years where she wanted more conversation, more acknowledgement, more of her own life, and quietly let those wants go. She raised children, she managed the home, she set aside a half-written novel in a drawer in 1987 and never returned to it. The grief, she discovers, is layered. She is not only grieving Robert, she is grieving the version of herself she never became. Research by psychologist Dr. Pauline Boss on ambiguous loss and complicated grief identifies that surviving spouses, particularly women in traditional marriages, often carry unresolved pre-death grief for unlived lives. A 2020 study in Death Studies found that women who reported high levels of self-suppression within marriage experienced more prolonged and complicated grief after spousal loss than those who had maintained stronger individual identities. This phenomenon is sometimes called shadow grief, mourning not just the person, but the life you didn't live alongside them. Margaret opens the drawer. She finds the novel. She reads the first page she wrote in 1987 at age 39. She hasn't read it in 33 years. She reads it quietly, and then she keeps reading.